Now at Verizon, we have some big news for your peace of mind. For all our customers, existing and new, we're locking in low prices for 3 years guaranteed on My Plan and My Home. That's future you peace of mind. And everyone can save on a brand new phone on My Plan when you trade in any phone from one of our top brands. That's new phone peace of mind. Because at Verizon, whether you're already a customer or you're just joining us, we got you. Visit Verizon today. Price guarantee applies to then current base monthly rate. Additional terms and conditions apply for all offers.
If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This is Car Tracks with Turtle Wax. Your car says a lot about you. So if we asked your car what it would say about you, what would it say?
Listen, you dropped one of those tiny cheeseburgers under the seat like last week, and now we're both dry heaving at the stench. Do us a favor, grab some turtle wax, and let's get to work.
This has been Car Tracks with Turtle Wax. You are how you car.
Super real.
We're in the twin turbo, coming out of LA, Freeway 202 or something. The pill kicks in, and I know it's kicking in because I'm feeling the fur on the back of the seat start to tickle my head. Flew back at over 100 miles an hour, listening to Digweed and Sasha, dancing our asses off all the way back. And those pills, we sold them in one weekend. So I had to make a decision then. Do I want to keep working in the rat race up at 6 o'clock in the morning, sales meeting? Or do I want to try and make money off the party scene? And that was the fateful decision where I thought, right, I'm going to sack all my hard work off and just start making money from the party scene. It's way more fun.
Hey, I'm Julian Morgans, and you're listening to What It Was Like, the show that asks people who have lived through big, dramatic events what it was like. Hello from Melbourne, where it's the middle of winter, and I'm not that happy about it. I'm really not. I think as I get older, I seem to suffer more and more from seasonal frustration. It's not depression. It's milder than that. I just get kind of annoyed all the time. I look out the window, out at the grey sky, and I'm like, ugh. And I just have this feeling all the time like I don't want to work. I just want to throw in the towel and just go drink a cocktail on a beach somewhere. Anyway, that's me. That's how I'm doing. And I think my desire to drink cocktails brings us to this week's theme, which is hedonism. And the reason for that is that our bonus episode this week follows the wild times of a master art forger. You should listen to that. It's very good. He's quite a hedonistic character. And in today's episode, the thing that you're listening to right now, we're going to meet another passionate hedonist, a man who helped to introduce rave culture to the United States. His name is Shaun Attwood, and he was born in Northern England in 1968. And at first, as a young man, he was kind of a maths guy. He became really into the stock market until he discovered something that was even more intoxicating: ecstasy. And then Shaun became a devoted member of the Manchester Rave scene, which he then imported, along with large commercial quantities of ecstasy, to the USA. And this is the kind of story where at first everything goes really well for Shaun. You might listen to the first two-thirds being like, God damn, maybe I should have just got into selling drugs. But parents listening to this with young ears around, you don't need to worry, because the tale takes a sharp, moralizing turn in the third act. If you've seen the Johnny Depp movie Blue, you'll kind of know where this goes, You know how drug stories end up. So this is a true crime drug story with all the usual elements: fast money, warm weather, wild parties, followed by a truly harrowing calm down. And let's get into it. Here is Shaun Attwood.
Hello, Shaun. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, man. Thank you for having me on.
It's a pleasure. Good evening. Good evening to you in the UK.
Indeed. Yeah.
So look, we've got a few things to get through. I'm really excited to talk to you. I've been looking forward to this for a while. But we're going to start with a sort of probably more civilized end of your story, which is your upbringing, your childhood. Can you take me back there? What am I imagining?
Well, I grew up in a town between Liverpool and Manchester, chemical manufacturing towns. I didn't have much money. And I studied the stock market at a young age. A really weird thing. I was only about 14 when I got interested in it. And I started investing when I was 16. But simultaneously, I had a friend who was a maniac, a complete opposite of me. And his name is Wildman, R.I.P. Wildman. He was my best mate. He died a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And we used to sit at a tree at the top of our town, overlooking a quarry. Like, what are you going to do when you grow up, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'd say, I'm going to go to America, make $1 million in the stock market, fly you over and get you a job as a wrestler, and you'll fight Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant and a British Bulldog. And I'd ask him, what's your plans? And he said, well, I've got red dots in my head telling me to hurt people, so I'm going to go to prison.
Yeah, he's a wild man.
Those prophecies both came true. So I went to America, made the money. He went to prison. And then when he got out of prison, I flew him over, and my life completely changed because of his visit. It went in a completely new direction. Yes.
Okay, well, we'll get there in due course. But I guess what I want to establish here is that you grew up kind of, I don't know, lower class. You didn't grow up rich, but you had big dreams. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, so my mom in the beginning was a stay-at-home mom of 2 kids. And then she went on to work in education. And my dad was a door-to-door salesman. Yeah, we didn't have much money at all. This was like back in like the 70s. I was growing up. And the stock market thing was just completely out of the blue. Because when I asked my parents for money for the stock market, they were like, bugger off. We're not bloody Tories. We don't support Margaret bloody Thatcher.
Got it.
We're not like your nan. I think that light bulb went off over my head. Then I jogged down to my nan's house and said, Margaret Thatcher's privatising British Telecom. Can I borrow 50 quid? And she said, yeah, because she loved Maggie. And it doubled on the first day of dealings, and I was hooked. I went down to the library, ordered dozens of books on the subject. And I watched that movie, Wall Street. Greed is good. Gordon Gekko.
Yeah.
So that became a mantra. We arrived in Arizona in 91 after doing a business studies degree at Liverpool University.
Okay. So which came first, the stock market or ecstasy? I mean, like, my understanding is that you sort of tasted your first pill when you were still living in the UK.
Yeah, so the ecstasy thing began when I was at uni, and this was like 88, 89, 90. It was what was called the Summer of Love here in England, and the rave scene just swept the entire country. On the news TV shows at the weekend, young people breaking into warehouses, young people breaking into airplane hangars, and I'm seeing this on the TV. I'm like, what is going on in this country? And it was a mate out of my economics class at uni, out of Manchester, said, come and check this out. So I went to the club, tried ecstasy, tried speed, and, we're in this, like, warehouse room. All these people are stood around the perimeter, it was just really boring. I couldn't understand the music or anything.
So this is your first rave, like when you show up, you first arrive and you're like, I don't get the appeal.
Didn't get it at all. All these people staring at the dance floor as if like expecting an elephant to materialize or something. Nobody's really doing anything. Anyway, it starts to fill and fill and fill. And my mate, he hooks us up with some ecstasy and some speed. And then about 40 minutes in, he's got like this face, like he's having an orgasm. He's just smiling at me. And he tries to get me to go and dance. And I'm like, I was terrified of dancing. I was so self-conscious. And about 10 minutes later, my knees just buckled. And I sat down. and the club's full by now. And all these people walking past me with their baggy jeans on and their sneakers, and I'm smiling at all of them. And they're looking down at me with the same big eyes. And I'm looking up at them, and then you don't even have to say anything. Everybody just knows, and you're in the same zone. My mate found me, grabbed me, pulled me up, and that was in then. I just didn't stop dancing all night long. I didn't even want to take a pee break. I just started to copy the moves from the people around me. The room was just pulsing. It was just going right through me. My T-shirt was melting into my neck. I just felt I was at one with God, and I never wanted the party to end.
Yeah, it's funny how ecstasy is a drug that just makes sense to some people. You know, some people don't like it. They don't like the rush. Other people are just like, best thing in the world. So tell me about how you divided your time between raving and, buying and selling shares.
So, as a teenager then, going into university, what happened was that it went from me just doing the privatizations that Margaret Thatcher was doing in my name. Now all my family members were jumping on. They all wanted to invest. This was all before I went to America. So when I went to America then, there wasn't a rave scene as such. They were still listening to UB40 and Michael Jackson and Prince. This was like 1991. They had like country and western channel, heavy metal channel. There was no rave channel or anything. So I was like struggling to find good music. But anyway, I buckled down into my job. It was like Wolf of Wall Street style, basically 6 o'clock in the morning, power sales meetings for the rookie brokers. They'd bring these heavy hitters in, and they had this huge board on the wall where everybody's numbers were for the month, the gross commissions, and these heavy hitters would be like, "You're only as big as your numbers on this board for the month. Smiling brokers make the most money." So we all had to have mirrors on our quads. Pacing brokers make the most money. We had these like multi-foot curly cords. So there were times when all the brokers were just pacing left and right and almost hitting each other on the floor. And I was the top grossing broker, grossing $500,000 a year in commissions. This is about 95, 96 now. And I had enough money to retire. Put that money in tech stocks. They jumped up during the dot-com bubble. And that was how I became a millionaire and fulfilled my dream that I'd set with Wildman at the beginning. But I've got no common sense. I'm in my late 20s, no emotional maturity. The money goes to my head. And I started to throw rave parties with it and distribute ecstasy.
Okay, all right. So at this point, has raving reached the United States, or is it still a distinctly Manchester kind of scene?
So what happened was there was a gay bar called the Silver Dollar Club that I managed to find in my first few years and connect with the DJs. And these DJs were just like local DJs who were starting out, who later on became internationally. They were gigging all over the world. Sandra Collins is one of them, and Eddie Amador was another one. The Silver Dollar Club was where I scored my first ecstasy in America from a guy called Bam. He's deceased now. Most of my associates are deceased. And that's how I started to make the initial connections, but only as a consumer and a raver, not as a distributor yet.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Okay, cool. So are you sort of claiming that you were a bit of a conduit for rave culture to reach the US?
So I was just a participant in the beginning. And what happened was, as I found out more venues, more events were being thrown, a rave clothing store started called Swell, which started to throw events. And DJ Eddie Amador, he started a thing out of his studio in South Central Phoenix in a really dodgy area called Chupa. So I'd pull up at Chupa like 1 a.m. I've got a twin turbo Mazda RX-7 out of Fast and Furious 1. It's got the Bose surround sound system. It looks like a spaceship. And they nicknamed me the Bank of England because I was still working in the stock market then. So they started to ask me to invest in the rave party ideas. And these, again, are some of the incipient connections I'm forming that are later incorporated into the criminal enterprise. That's how I connected with the locals.
So what was the sort of the bolt of inspiration? What was the light bulb moment that made you think, hey, I'm going to start selling ecstasy in Arizona?
So Wildman's visit transformed everything. So when Wildman came, I put him in a shared house by the Georgian Dragon British pub in Central Phoenix, thinking that he'd just have a beer with the expats and he'd behave himself, and I could get him this job as a wrestler. Very idealistic. Me and my girlfriend go over there a couple of months later, and a bunch of Mexicans answer the door. And we're like, where's Peter? Because that's Wellman's name, Peter. And they're like looking at us, shaking their head, no Peter here, no Peter. And I'm like, yeah, Peter, he lives here. Anyway, they start displaying guns, and me and my girlfriend backtrack across the road. Wellman comes bouncing over the road, all smiles. I'm like, what the hell's going on with your place, Peter? We almost got shot. He said, they're the local crack dealers. They like to move around a lot. So I'm letting them stay in my place. They're giving me as much free crack as I can consume. They're buzzing off it. And I'm in their place over the street. And the guy at the back there, he's from Colombia. He's running them. And he wants to invest in the stock market. And I'm like, oh my God, Peter, what have you done? So fortunately, I was able to move him to Tempe, Arizona, with one of the females he lived with in this huge apartment complex called the Quadrangles. But this apartment, he just starts having everybody in there 24/7. Homeless people, transgender, Native American streetwalking sex workers, gangbangers, Russian mafia, Mexican mafia, you name it, they're all in there 24/7. And it's through him I meet all these really, some of them extremely dangerous people, and other people, who are quite connected in the drug scene. And we do an experiment. We can only get 50 to 100 pills off the locals through a guy called Acid Joey, who knows all the locals. And he says to us, I know where they're getting them from out of LA. So 2 carloads of us go out to LA. There's me and Wildman on the spaceship. And then there's Seth, another big guy, and Acid Joey in the other car. And we're in like West Hollywood. We're waiting for this guy. He's not even home. And Wellman's like, why has this guy got us waiting? I'm just going to smash his door in and take his shit. And I'm like, Peter, that's not good business. Give him a chance. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the guy shows up, goes in his house with some surfer gangster guys, straight out of Point Break, that movie. I go in. I tell the guys, keep Wildman under control, will you? At least for 15 minutes. If I'm not out in 15 minutes, then you can come and smash the door in and rescue me, because I've got a lot of cash on me. So I go in there then, and I'm crapping it, because I've never done anything like this before. And the guy says, do you want to, I ask him, can I try one of the pills first? I think it was a Mitsubishi. This is about 96, 97. So I flick the pill in my mouth. He asked me if I want to drink. I said, no, I like to chew it, because then I can taste if it's good or not. And he's looking at me like I'm crazy.
That's an interesting detail. Like, what does a good ecstasy tablet taste like? Because I've heard, my friends have told me, they all taste like crap.
Yeah, but there's good crap and there's bad crap. So a good ecstasy pill should be 100 to 125 milligrams of MDMA and clay. And usually if they're out of Holland, which they were predominantly back then, they're like a beige press. Maybe they've got some speckles on them. And you taste it and you just get this, the correct crap chemical taste for a good high, because you've chewed it so many times by then. Well, at least I had. And then later on, we got testing kits from a website called Dance Safe, because I couldn't go to get them in Holland because I was in the country illegally. So I had to send people testing kits to get them from Holland when we were buying tens of thousands at a time. But that was later on. So I throw this pill in my mouth. I'm chewing it up. And I'm like, yeah, it tastes good, man. He goes and gets the biggest bag of pills I've ever seen in my life, 500 or 1,000, whatever it was. So I hand over the bills. He hands over the pills. I leave there. I get in my twin turbo. And it's got like a first seat. So I put the Sasha John Digweed CD on, Renaissance, which is one of me and Wildman's favorites. And we're in the twin turbo coming out of LA. What's it? Freeway 202 or something. And the pill kicks in. And I know it's kicking in because I'm feeling the fur on the back of the seat start to tickle my head. and then my eyes are just starting to roll into the back of my head. And I'm like, I've got this music cranked up, and we just, and this sounds insane, we just danced our asses off, flew back at like, over 100 miles an hour, listening to Digweed and Sasha, dancing our asses off all the way back. Later on, once I knew security protocol about not getting busted with drugs, I'm a completely different person, but I'm naive at this point. And those pills, we sold them out of that Rancho Marietta complex in one weekend. So I had to make a decision then. Do I want to keep working in the rat race up at 6 o'clock in the morning, sales meeting? Or do I want to try and make money off the party scene? And that was the fateful decision where I thought, right, I'm going to sack all my hard work off and just start making money from the party scene. It's way more fun.
Hey, we're just going to stop here for a quick ad break, but stick around. We'll be right back with more What It Was Like.
This is Car Tracks with Turtle Wax. Your car says a lot about you. So if we asked your car what it would say about you, what would it say?
Listen, you dropped one of those tiny cheeseburgers under the seat like last week, and now we're both dry heaving at the stench. Do us a favor, grab some turtle wax, and let's get to work.
This has been Car Tracks with Turtle Wax. You are how you car.
Vulnerability doesn't mean you have to be crying in front of people. Vulnerability can be just recognizing how you feel.
For so many men, vulnerability gets mistaken for weakness. But why? And what's that misunderstanding costing us? On the latest episode of Mind If We Talk, a podcast from BetterHelp, host and licensed therapist Hesu Zhou unpacks the pressures around masculinity and how those expectations can leave men feeling isolated, disconnected, and stuck. Whether you're working on redefining your relationship with masculinity, trying to make a change, or just want to better understand the men in your life, this episode is a must listen. Mind If We Talk is available now wherever you get your podcasts.
When it comes to delivering flowers for life's special occasions, trust the name that's been setting the standard for nearly 50 years. 1-800-Flowers.com. From breathtaking bouquets to one-of-a-kind arrangements, 1-800-Flowers is your authority on quality blooms. Always fresh, always stunning, always delivered with care. And right now, for a limited time, you can save up to 40% off your bouquet and make someone's day. Save up to 40% off today at 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST.
Out here, we feel things. The sore calves that lead to epic views, the cool waterfall mist during a hot hike, and the breeze that hits just right at the summit. But hey, don't just listen to us. Experience it for yourself. All Trails makes it easy to discover the best of the outdoors, with more than 450,000 trails around the world, points of interest along the trail, and offline maps for always-on navigation. Download the free app today and find your next outdoor adventure.
Was the party scene well established at that time, or were you kind of selling a product that was somewhat new to the culture?
All right, so we're talking now 96, 97. So I entered the country in 91. So by 96, 97, there's Swell are throwing more parties now, like nearly every weekend. There's Sounds Factory out of Tucson, another raving clothing store, has popped up. They're throwing parties as well. And there's a number of different crews that are also throwing parties. And these crews are competing against each other. Some of them having beefs. And me and Wildman are adjudicating over these beefs. And through doing so, we're incorporating all these crews into the criminal enterprise. And that's how it evolved organically. And so at the peak of it, all the locals are fully incorporated. We've got about 200 people working for us. We're now investors in Swell Clothing and Sounds Factory. We're using those outfits to launder money. Because if they're throwing a rave at the weekend and they're putting cash into the bank on Monday, who knows where that money's come from?
It's brilliant.
Plus, I also flew loads of different people over from the UK, opened bank accounts, stock market accounts, credit accounts, rented cars, houses in their names, and created this spider's web of accounts that once I got the money into the banking system, I could just funnel it into the stock market and it could just go all over the place. And these accounts, went back to these people who were back in the UK. Houses, cars got busted. The people were in the UK, so it kind of insulated me.
Was it hard to keep track of this spider's web? Or did you kind of know if we put money in here, it's going to pop out on this side? Or how did you map this out?
So I had access to all of the accounts. Yeah. So I would just log on and look at how the accounts are doing. I didn't want to keep written records or anything like that because I was cognizant if the cops do come, they're going to get that. However, I did keep a little device, I don't know what you would call it these days, that I could do calculations on, and it would store things. And in code words and numbers, I did keep track of all of the debts of what people owed me. And I think the cops did seize that when the SWAT team came May 16th, 2002, but they never put two and two together. That was a record of my debts.
Okay. Can you just sort of briefly run me through the whole sort of vertical integrated thing that you've built here? How are you getting the ecstasy from the Netherlands into the US?
All right, so let's go back to 96, 97. I'm getting 50 to 100 pills through Acid Joey. And then we do the trip to LA. That's about 97. And from 97, we establish, we've got about 3 different suppliers out of LA, including my good friend Mike Hot Wheels, who we ended up living with for 10 years after my incarceration because he got deported as well back to the UK.
Right.
So out of LA then, we could usually get 1 to 2,000 pills, maybe sometimes up to 5,000 pills at the most. But the demand was such, we needed to get more, and some of those suppliers out of LA got busted. So I started to send people on exploration trips to Holland, and these people were taking the testing kits from DanceSafe, whereby you test the pill and it goes purple blue color in the kit, and then it's the 100 to 125 milligrams of MDMA, and it's pure stuff. And then they would bring these samples back, and then over the years we explored different methods of smuggling them back, which range from people strapping them to their bodies, shipping them in by FedEx, in hollowed out stock market annual reports. Yeah, we put them in those.
They're pretty boring. I can imagine why no one opened those up.
Indeed. But those methods again, it's limited. So this is before 9/11. People could actually put them in their luggage, in pillowcases, yeah. And if you wanted to be even more secure, screwed into computer towers. So a few in the beginning, some people were coming directly from Europe into America. We did lose a couple of people. We lost one guy in France. We lost one guy coming into America. Both of those guys got incarcerated. Anyone who got arrested, we assigned them legal benefits. So we give them bail money if we could. We give them a lawyer, get the best deal we could. So that that was part of. A lot of people came and worked for us,
part of the deal,
as opposed to Sammy the Bull Gravano, because those guys didn't give legal benefits. But I consulted somebody, an expert in smuggling methods, a lawyer, and the lawyer said, "Shaun, why don't you start bringing them in through Mexico?" So the route then was, I invested in property in Puerto Penasco, Rocky Point, and a lot of people go down there during spring break and stuff, which was an ideal time to smuggle. And we would send someone on a plane from Hermosillo Airport, which is near California, side of Mexico, over to Mexico City, and then they'd get Air France to Paris, and then they'd jump on a train from Paris over to Holland, and then they'd come right back. And when they came back to Hermosillo, we'd pick them up. Those smugglers would be relieved of their duties. We'd take the pills down to Rocky Point, and then we'd transfer them to other smugglers in SUVs with all these stickers on them, like University of Arizona, and they'd have scuba diving stuff, diving tanks, all this tourist bric-a-brac. And we never lost anyone. Yeah, we never lost anyone who was bringing them in over the border into Arizona from Mexico using that technique.
That's smart. What were
Thanks.
you? I'm curious. What were you paying someone, like one of these sort of mules, per trip?
So it would depend on the number of the pills, and they probably a lot of them. I mean, we were such a tight knit community. People were competing just to have a holiday in Holland. That's how everybody was so motivated, like to just put work in. So probably the most they got was like they got the free trip or everything paid for them, a couple of grand, spending money off they were in debt to me. I'd take a couple of grand off the debt, stuff like that. It wasn't massive amounts of money. I think the guy who brought the 40,000 pills over, which was the most, he probably got something like $5,000 if I remember rightly, something like that.
Oh man, they're loyal workers. I got to admit, I wouldn't come in from Holland with a whole bunch of ecstasy pills strapped to my stomach, or even in a computer terminal, or whatever, for less than at least $100,000. Like 5K is a budget mule.
Well, this was the 90s as well, bear in mind, so prices were a lot different back then. $2,000 to $5,000 back then. It's probably worth a lot more now, I imagine.
Yeah. Okay, and you were making a lot of money. I mean, can you give me a sense of what you were making in a year doing this?
So, we just did a documentary. It came out on HBO Max in America called Sons of Ecstasy. I don't know if you've seen it. But the lawyer had to go over all of the legal paperwork and interview me to calculate what the profit and sales were over the years. Because I had a run from 97, SWAT team came May 16th, 2002. But I had quit about a year before they came, the importation. So I had about a 4-year run?
Yeah.
So they calculated that my profit was, at a minimum, it was $5 million. And the street value of the drugs sold was in the tens of millions.
Damn, that's huge. Okay, so what does it look like to live on $5 million a year?
Well, I don't think that was a year. That was over 4 years. So I was living in $1 million house on the side of a mountain in a gated guarded community called Sinvacus in North Tucson, which was beautiful. Wake up, jump in the swimming pool naked. This is just in time to go down to the Indian restaurant and have our lunch. And I had a guy called Cody Bates. He's also dead now. He was my right-hand man. He rented an apartment just for the cash and the product. He was the only one who knew what it was. So he'd do the rounds, come to me and speak to me in person because we were cognizant of the cops, trying to listen in on us. If everything was running smoothly, I'd just stick to my routine, swimming pool, food, hanging out at the house, shooting pool, whatever. If there was a problem, then Wildman and my other main bodyguard, a guy called G-Dog, whose brother was in the New Mexican Mafia, they would take care of business. And what I mean by that is people were terrified of Wildman. He didn't beat people up. If people owed money, he would just move in with them. And if he moved in with you, you'd see all your furniture getting carried out. The Mexicans would be taking it. There'd be like pimps and sex workers in your kitchen cooking up crack 24/7, and there'd be this rave music blasting. There'd be ravers, gangbang all day long, homeless people all day long. So people were terrified. Wildman became unhousable because houses were blown up that he lived in, set on fire by accident, and he was banned from all of the hotels. During his first visit, he ended up living under a tree in Tempe Beach Park with his stripper girlfriend with a Rambo knife and a baseball bat. And there was some people who were coming and were brutalizing the homeless people. And he handled those people and the homeless people hailing him as their king. But him and the stripper went on a crime spree like Bonnie and Clyde. And they got arrested and he was deported. And the judge said, "You are a menace to society. I'm never allowing you back into America." But a few years later, he was back. I had to send Mission Impossible style teams of people around the world to keep smuggling him in through Mexico and Canada. So he kept, every time he got arrested, he was deported again.
You're a very loyal friend, Shaun. I think a lot of people would be like, oh, you're just too much trouble, Pete.
But that's it, though. We were all really loyal. We would do anything for each other.
Yeah.
It was more of a community thing and a fun thing than I'm going to make X amount of money and do this and that. It was like we found this belonging. We were all social misfits, really. I was beaten up by the rugby players in high school, and I had social anxiety as a teenager. And we just created this community where we all fit in, and we all were just so close. Because when we did get arrested, over 100 of us, only 4 cooperated with the cops. They thought everybody would. In Sammy the Bull Gravano's case, 57 people arrested, and they all cooperated right away. And that reflects how loyal everybody was in our community.
Okay, so let's shift over to how you got arrested. Like, what was the cause of coming undone? Where did you go wrong?
So they had 10 witness statements had come forward to the police over the years. I learned that from a grand jury indictment.
Just people who'd been burned, people who had it in for you for whatever reason?
Well, some of those were property owners. The Wildmans had destroyed their properties that I put them in, had housed them in there. And concerned citizens. And the one that got us the most, 9 of them were irrelevant. There was only one who was an insider, and that was a guy called Schooley. So what happened was, Wildman goes home after his first visit. I'm introduced to Schooley, and he wants to sell ecstasy for me. And people are warning me, saying, no, don't, he's a crackhead. He's living out of dumpsters, blah, blah, blah. But my motto back then was give everybody a chance. I would say all people must be given a chance to flourish in our garden. And I did give him a chance. And he quickly became my top-selling ecstasy person. Like, he was handing over tens of thousands a night sometimes, doing all these big deals. And he had a badass girlfriend. They had a baby. They got a house together. And he really rose up the ranks rapidly. And I used to call him my little brother. And yeah, his girlfriend, I'll call her Marie. She was quite wild as well. Anyway, Wildman comes over again. This is his second visit now. And he's my big brother. So now there's competition between big brother and little brother. And little brother's feeling a bit left out. And little brother's on these drug cocktails. He's smoking crack, meth, sherm, embalming fluid, and he's getting really paranoid about Wildman, because Wildman's got a reputation. You know, he's a big guy. When he died, he was 29.5 stone and 6'2", and 1 stone is 14 pounds if you want to calculate that. So he was a huge, scary guy. His fists were twice the size of mine, and just all human teeth marks from all the people he just punched in the face over the years. Yeah, so this tension built to the point where Schooley was scheming, and Wildman was rearrested and put in a deportation prison yet again. But we'd brought over Wildman's fiancée, Wild Woman, who was hard as nails woman from Liverpool. And she was a tiny little blonde woman, but she was fierce. So Wild Woman now was established, and she's moving product. Wildman's in deportation prison, and Wild Woman's at home, and a firebomb comes through her window, almost hits her in the face. And then all of a sudden, these guys from the south side pull up in the car, and they say they're with the English, with us, and they've come to save Wild Woman and take her to safety and tell her to grab her product and jump in the car. And she sees through that right away. She's like, who do you fucking think you're talking to? I'm from Liverpool. I just didn't get off the fucking banana boat. I'm all this stuff. And they're just like shaking their, they're like, what the hell have we got into? And they just took off. But the whole thing was a setup by Schooley, whereby they were going to rob the product. And we found out. So when Wildman found out, he's like, get me out of this deportation prison right now. So I pay a lawyer like 5 or 10 grand and he expedites the process. Wildman gets sent back to the UK, and then we smuggle him back in through Mexico or Canada. I can't remember which time this was.
God.
And then he's just got a one-track mind then whereby he's going to kill Schoolie. And Wildman is on all kinds of... He's staying up for 2 weeks at a time, smoking meth and crack, and his eyes are red. And I'm saying, look, Peter, you can't kill anyone. We're just ravers. We're peaceful people. This is a death penalty state. And he's like, that guy tried to firebomb my woman. I'm going to do what I effing want. You ain't going to tell me what to do. And I couldn't stop him. So Schoolie got so scared, he went to the cops and left the state. But he turned us in, and he had the inside scoop.
Oh, shit. Okay. What happened after he turned you in?
So May 16th, 2002, I'm living a comparatively different life now. I've met a woman. She's terrified of my mates, doesn't want me importing ecstasy anymore. I've stopped it for almost a year. I'm in college doing Spanish, and I'm back at the gym and everything. So we're looking to move to LA. And then May 16th, 2002, bam, 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 on the door. I'm just sat at my computer, look at the stock market again. 10p, please. We got a warrant. Open the door. So I'm thinking, is it the cops or someone pretending to be the cops who's come to rob me? Go to the bedroom to my girlfriend. Like, all right, we better let them in. And then we're walking through the living room, and just boom, door just flies off the hinges. Hands above your heads. Get on the ground now. Don't fucking move. And you see them through the plexiglass goggles. They got these very intense expressions, and one false move, they open up on you, and your life is over in seconds. So time slows down. You're looking at them. You're like, get on the ground. You fall on the ground. And then I got hoisted up by this detective who I learned from the paperwork later on was my nemesis, Detective Reed. He was elated after all these years he'd finally got me.
Did you sort of feel like, okay, I'm going to prison for a long time? Or were you optimistic at that point?
I was in shock. Because I quit and I thought I got away with it. Next thing, I'm screaming at my girlfriend, I'm exercising my right to remain silent. So they dragged me then outside, put me in this cop car, in the back of this cop car, and we're driving across the desert, and I'm all handcuffed and sweaty. My adrenaline's going because I've just been swatted, and I'm looking out over the desert landscape, and he's got this hard rock playing. And I figured, oh shit, man, your karma's finally arrived. All the shit you've done, the price to pay is here, and you thought you got away with it. I was still clinging to the false hope, though, that because there wasn't any drugs in my apartment, they might have to let me go. But once I got into the jail, and more of my co-defendants started to arrive, and I got charged with conspiracy, running a crime syndicate, continuous criminal enterprise, and my bail bond was $750,000 cash only. Then I started to understand, how much time I was facing and the seriousness of it.
Hey, we're just going to stop here for a quick ad break, but stick around. We'll be right back with more What It Was Like.
This summer, Instacart is bringing back your favorites from 1999 with prices from 1999. That means 90s prices on juice pouches that ought to be respected, 90s prices on box mac and cheese, and 90s prices on ham, cheese, and cracker lunches. Enjoy all those throwbacks and more at throwback prices, only through Instacart. $4.72 maximum discount per $10 of eligible items. Limit one offer per order. Expires September 5th while supplies last. Discount based on CPI comparison.
If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I mean, they were really chasing you like you were a big fish. Why didn't you just leave the US? I mean, like, you know, I haven't walked your journey before, but I like to think that if I had became a big time drug dealer and I made a bunch of money and I was on the cusp of getting away with it, I'd be like, right, I am out of America. I'm going to go home to my little village and just keep my head down for the rest of all eternity. Like, why didn't you do that?
Because I violated Scarface's law. Don't get high on your own supply. Once you start getting high on your own supply, it scrambles your decision-making processes and puts a cloud in your head that you do not even know is there. It took a couple of weeks in the county jail for that cloud to lift and me to look back on my life and to think, wow, how on earth are you still alive? What have you just done for the last 10 years of your life? Why didn't you get out when you had a chance? All these things hit you from the sober perspective. So, yeah, you know, I'd been given a heads up by our lawyer. She said that she had someone in the DEA and they were hot for me.
Okay, so tell me about prison. I mean, how was that?
Yeah, so I ended up in the jail run by Sheriff Joe Arpaio, America's toughest sheriff, which has got the highest rate of death in America. This was the environment I landed in. So as soon as I got into Towers Jail, medium security was my first year. The neo-Nazi guys come up to me. You know, they've got Hitler, Zeke Heilen on the chest, swastikas, SS, lightning bolts, all this stuff. And they're like, hey, Wood. Like, Wood is what they say for white boy, like mate. And they're like, you know, what are you in for? You need to come and have a word with us in that cell over there. So I go in the cell. They close the door behind me. And the biggest one gets in my face. He's like, what are your charges? What are your charges? Conspiracy, crime, syndicate. I don't understand what all that stuff means properly. So I say to them, I'm not exactly sure what my charges mean. Now, that is not a good answer. This is how naive I was at the very beginning. So now they got me against the wall about to attack me. What do you mean? You don't know what your charges mean? Are you a chomo? Are you a chomo? I don't even know what a chomo is at this point. So chomo is child molester. So what I did was I pulled my charge sheet out. And they saw I had all these fancy charges, and my bail was $750,000. And they were buzzing. $750,000. God damn, dude. Who did you guys kill? You guys the mafia? And I was like, no, Rave, Ecstasy. We were very peaceful. And then they explained all the rules you must follow as the whole gang will attack you. If someone calls you a punk or a bitch, you got to fight them on the spot or else the whole gang will attack you. You must take showers or they'll smash you for bad hygiene. You can't go make your friends with the guards, they'll smash you for snitching. Can't sit at the table with the other races, they'll smash you for that. And on and on and on it goes.
So what was your sentence?
So I got sentenced in the end. I was facing 200 years. And we fought the case for 26 months. These prosecutors are like used car salespeople. So when I did sign a plea bargain for 9.5 years, you know, I felt relieved. And getting sentenced to 9.5 years was one of the happiest days of my life. They had serious drug offender status on me, which carried 25 to life. After a year of fighting my case, because I wouldn't cooperate, they doubled my charges and doubled my bail to $1.5 million and moved me to maximum security. And they were just putting more and more pressure on me every single month, until my lawyer managed to get the deal of 9.5 years. And I've done a TED Talk called What Facing 200 Years Taught Me About Happiness. Yeah. And I created that second year when I was facing 200 years, when I was pushed to the brink of suicidal insanity, with actually crushing that English Shaun persona out of me and sending me on a new positive direction where I started to help the prisoners, where my activism began, where my writing was smuggled out, my blog began, which led to the YouTube channel. And it was one of the first prison channels. And my blogging was my writing, which led to my books. I've written 17 books now and completely transformed my life and sent me on this positive path. Where, you know, I spoke to hundreds of thousands of school kids now. And I feel blessed to have this job where I just interview people, interesting people who've been involved in true crime.
What was it about maximum security that drove you to the brink of suicide?
Oh, my goodness. So I arrived about 2 a.m. There was some light slanting into the cell from the day room, and I noticed my cellie is on the top bunk. I'm wondering, why is he on the top bunk? Where I come from, people fight over the bottom bunk. So I walk in some more. Something drops off the ceiling and bounces off my shoulder. Like, what the hell was that? And then I'm looking at the walls and I'm seeing this weird movement, like a swirl effect. I think my eyes are playing tricks. So I put my face right up to the wall and it's covered in these guys.
In cockroaches.
The American cockroach.
That is a monster cockroach.
Well, that's a blown-up mouse path. They're actually about the size of an almond nut. They're very skinny, and they can get through all the cracks very easily because they had these huge ones, sewer roaches, which were orange and were big, and they would peep at us through the cracks, and they couldn't get through them. But basically, 8 at night is lockdown, 10 is lights out. And as soon as the lights went out, you've seen them before lights out, actually. They'd line up in the cracks doing this movement with their antennae sticking out, waiting for the lights to go out. And as soon as the lights went out, they would just flood the room. Now, you've got a choice. You can wrap the sheet around you, leave a breathing hole like the mummy. But this is the Sonoran Desert. It's almost 50 degrees on the UK temperature scale, which is like 120, 130 on the American temperature scale.
Ugh.
So there's a swamp cooler which only works on the day the county health inspector comes through. The rest of the year, it's like as warm as your breath. So we're all stinking and sweating like dogs. And we've got all these skin infections and bed sores that are itching and bleeding.
Ugh.
And when you scratch yourself, because you're sweating day after day, your skin's turn soggy. So clumps of your own skin detach under your nails. So when you put the sheet around you to stop the roaches, the heat is trapped. And you get so unbearably itchy you can't possibly sleep. You can tolerate it for a little bit, and then you just end up throwing the sheet off. And that's when the roaches come. So I was on the bottom bunk. The bracket bolted to the wall. All of the plaster was coming undone. And they were pouring out of the wall onto my bunk. That's why my soulmate was asleep above me. So I'm trying to, shield myself from this. And I can't sleep. They started out tickling my feet. So many nights I'm drifting off to sleep, and then I feel just something tickling my hands. And I look at my hands, and there's one there, and I just flick it away. To this day, if my partner tickles my hand, she does it on purpose sometimes, just to make me flinch, because it just takes me right back to them, crawl on me. They get on your face, mouth, nose, but the favourite place of all is going into your ears to eat your earwax. It's like honey to them.
Oh, yuck.
I had a neighbour who was asthmatic, wakes up one morning out of breath, grabs his inhaler, shoots a cockroach inside himself, starts freaking out, saying he can feel it moving around, and he's trying to throw it up, and somehow it's stuck inside him. It won't even come
in his
out.
lungs.
Even in the daytime, the guys are doing cockroach races on the tables in the day room, betting on the winner. And if I dug in my ears with the flannel to get the earwax out, because I had big clots of earwax periodically, so I'd rip off some sheet, make a flannel, and then I'd hang it to dry under the combination sink toilet. The roaches would find it, and they'd be pulsing on the earwax, trying to get the earwax out of the rag. But so I was in maximum security for 14 months, which was cockroach infested. Occasionally, we had 2 meals a day. Red Death, mystery meat stop. Occasionally had a dead rat in it. I remember for about 2 months straight, they just gave us eggplant in the evening, which was just like leather. I couldn't eat it. The only alternative was the breakfast, 2 meals a day, which was moldy bread and green bologna. So I tried to play the system, converting to the Hindu religion to get a vegetarian religious diet. And I got this peanut butter in the morning, but it was burnt. And instead of the slop with the dead rats in it in the evening, I'd get... there was some potatoes, and I was so excited, but then I saw the lesions in them and the strands of the hair. And they gave me like a veggie burger. It was hard as a discus. I had to put it in water to get it in my mouth and be able to begin to chew it. I don't know what chemicals were in it, but I had bad breath for about 3 days. If my girlfriend was visiting me, I couldn't even eat it because my breath would be stinking. So it was all this food garbage that society was throwing away. The Sheriff Joe Arpaio, he prided himself. He said he was getting all this stuff, boxes, there was cans in there from the 1970s that had expired, food with boxes not fit for human consumption. He'd go to neighborhoods where they were rat infested and pick up all the old fruit and bring it to us. And he boasted. He said it cost him more to feed his police dogs than his prisoners, and his police dogs were working for a living. He said it cost 50 cents or less per day to feed the prisoners the rotten food. Yeah. So
God.
to get to your point, then it was the cockroaches,
Yeah.
it was the heat.
Yeah.
I had a pink eye infection. My eyelid was down here, and there's yellow pus coming out of my eyeball. I've got all these skin infections and bed sores. I can't sleep at nights with the cockroaches crawling on me. My girlfriend's my lifeline. She's visiting me 3 times a week. They charge you with a prescription pill found on the day of the SWAT team raid that didn't have a written prescription next to it, which is a class 6 felony. Co-defendants can't visit co-defendants, so they cut her off. They tell me I'm facing 200 years. There's a guy who's facing a similar sentence to me. His case is running a bit before mine. He refuses to sign for a 15-year plea bargain, goes to trial, and they give him 200 years. And I'm listening to the prosecutor in the court, and she's like, yeah, Attwood's next. If he doesn't sign a plea bargain, he's going to get 200 years just like that guy. So I'm thinking, F this. Do I want to spend the rest of my life like this? I'm just going to slash my wrists and bleed out. So what I did was, I waited for a guard to do a security walk. I'm just going to bleed out. I've got 30 minutes before he comes again. Just lay here with the cockroaches. But before I want to do it, I'm going to say goodbye to my family and friends. And what I mean by that was I was allowed 7 photos. So I got these photos of my mum, dad, girlfriend, sister. And I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, oh my God, my mum's going to get a call saying, your son's just killed himself in a foreign prison. And to be honest, Julian, I started crying. I couldn't bear the fall, put my mum through that. And that's what pulled me back from the brink of doing it. But it was, like I said, I credit it with being this huge turning point in my life. A guy comes into my cell in the following days. He's got a rod in his leg and the screw's loose, is in agony. He's got hepatitis C, he's got syphilis, and he's got stomach cancer so advanced he's going to die in there. And he's telling me his story. I'm thinking, God, I was feeling so sorry for myself the other night. There's always somebody worse off. And prior to this, I thought prisoners lock them up and throw away the key. They're paedophiles, rapists, murderers, because that's what the news had led me to believe. But the average person in there was like a low-level drug offender, black kid, Mexican kid getting arrested with weed, prior convictions, they give them 2 to 5 years. The mentally ill, it was the biggest house of the mentally ill. More than half of my friends in prison were veterans of wars who'd come back given no help, PTSD, got on street drugs, ended up in prison. A third of them couldn't even read all right. So I started to help them read their legal paperwork. I was teaching a class for the Mexicans how to write letters home in Spanish. They couldn't write properly. You know, my education became my currency, and it got me some respect that I could read the guy's legal paperwork and fit in. So whatever your skill set is, they try and find a way to fit in. If you ever end up in prison, you know, there might be some way, because if you don't fit in, you're just going to get brutalized. It's raw survival of the fittest. I saw so many people, teeth just flying out and bouncing on the floor. I saw a guy with his leg pointing in the completely wrong direction. Every day there was violence. There was someone's head getting smashed against the wall. I got used to the sound of it. You would hear it and just become familiar. You knew what the sound of a head getting bashed against the wall was like versus the sound of a head getting bashed against the toilet, what that was like.
What a horrible place.
Did me good.
Well, I want to hear about that, but you know, you were there for 10 years, right? That's a decade.
No. So I was in multiple facilities. So my sentence was 9.5 years, but my lawyer from the New Mexico Mafia was a loophole lawyer, and he got me what's called a half-time release for prisoners who are non-violent drug offenders who are not U.S. citizens. So my county jail time was 26 months, which was my back time. And then I got half time on the remainder of the sentence. So I served exactly 5 3/4 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you say that period did you a world of good. And how is that?
I know, looking back now, I wish it had been much worse. And would it have done me even more good? Or would I have ended myself? I don't know. So, yeah, I mean, right. So first year, I'm still wild. If I had beat my case or got out somehow by some miracle, I would have gone back to the lifestyle. But second year, facing the 200 years, my $1 million house on the mountain didn't matter anymore. That's all gone. It immediately becomes raw survival of the fittest. Who can harm me? Who can help me? Who can I make alliances with? You're just in that mode. How can I get through this? And then when they tell you you're going to take your complete life away, your thought process going in a new trajectory then where everything's amplified. You're just concentrating on everything possible to try and get your life back. So that haunts you day in, day out. And then when you do get sentenced to 9.5 years, it's like, hallelujah, hallelujah. You're like, I can finally see when I'm going to get my life back. But now I've been transformed from a person who was materialistic, and hedonistic. It was just complete and utter party time. And people can read the insane levels we went to in my book Party Time about that. Now it's gone to like helping other people and becoming an activist. My aunt is coming into maximum security visitation, smuggling out what I've written and hiding it in letters and legal paperwork I'm releasing through the visitation officers. She's risking herself, smuggling it out. The activism, typing those letters up, emailing them to my parents in the UK. And mostly what I was writing about, what I was documenting, was my cohabitation and the habits and my run-ins with the cockroaches. People were finding this very entertaining. And the blog got recognised. This was when I was in super maximum security after I got sentenced. I was in Supermax for a bit, for about 3 months. And the BBC ran it, and The Guardian ran it. And the activism then was starting to get recognised all over the world. My parents were getting comments and emails coming in, and they were printing things out and sending me things and telling me things on the phone. And it just, that was my life path. The YouTube channel started in 2007 when I got released. And I've never looked back. So I'm a speaker, author, activist, YouTuber. I met my partner. She was my co-host after Wildman was my co-host after he died. And we had baby Ziggy, who's the chap who's been keeping me awake at nights recently, but so full of love. He's called Zygmunt Wilder, middle name after Wildman. And he is as big. Came out at 10 pounds. He's not stopped growing. He's in size age 4 clothes. He's almost 40 pounds. I've gone to the gym my whole life to try and gain some weight. Carrying him around almost 40 pounds, going to the flight of stairs, throwing him in the air, catching him. I've gone up 2 inches on my chest. I've gained a couple of stone.
So it sounds like your life is very different now. You're a wholesome man. Do you ever still take ecstasy?
No, but I did take one thing, and that was with the blessing of my family, because it was my sister's idea. And that was ayahuasca. And that was something else. All of my dead friends came and spoke to me. Nearly all my male friends who were close to me in the crime family have passed. And they all came to spoke to me in a group setting. And Wildman's at the front of them, leading the pack, talking to me when I was on the ayahuasca, saying he was so proud of me having a family and having baby Ziggy and Jen and doing all these good things and being a family man. And, the YouTube channel and everything thriving. And he said that he was still protecting me from above. And it's so real. To this day, my brain thinks I really spoke to my friends. Perhaps I did. It's almost as if ayahuasca took me through a portal where you could speak to the dead.
Yeah. Okay, well, this is going to be a hard question to answer then, but I feel like we've gone through this journey with you, and I'm curious, so where have you arrived now? What do you feel like you learned?
So I say one of the most important things for me is to learn how to manage an addictive personality type, because neuroscience is showing that people can be born with these things or they can be triggered and switched on. And what I've learned from interviewing a lot of people as well is people who are hardcore addicted. This is something I had to recognize in myself. Predominantly, a root cause of that is childhood trauma. So I was almost beaten to death by some drunks when I was a teenager. And I had social anxiety, which was compounded by what happened with those guys. And I wouldn't go out and dance and talk to strangers. And, I had a nervous disposition. And then when the rave scene began, I took ecstasy, and I wouldn't stop dancing and hugging and talking to strangers all night long and telling them my life story. And I was doing that for over 10 years. People saw me as this wild and crazy party person, but I was, according to the therapist, I was self-medicating for social anxiety and trauma caused by that incident. That was, it's a complex thing, but they were contributory factors. So once I sobered up, as a person, in my late 20s, 30s, that anxiety would hit me again. And, I'd stay at home. I was a bit of a loner. But then when the SWAT team came and I was forced to live with people for over 6 years, some of whom were maniacs in close quarters, the therapist said, if you're going to confront something like that, if you've got an anxiety over something, You've got to confront it head on by exposing yourself to it. But you've also got to address the root causes of why, you're so addictive, and you've got to face your demons. But people won't go in there, take this inner journey, because they're afraid of what they might find. So they continue to take drugs or alcohol or do whatever it is to self-medicate, but it can often lead to their premature demise. As we saw with Wildman, he died in his 40s from multiple organ failure. He had a stent put in his heart right away. He had a lot of hospital heart situations in America. I mean, he was on the hospital beds in America with all these tubes and the measuring devices. And he'd take drugs on the hospital bed. He just didn't occur. It was like he had a death wish.
That's wild.
Yeah, so I've lost so many friends. And I've had to learn to channel that addictive energy into other things, because the therapist said, if you give something up, there's a space inside you and you've got to fill it.
Yeah.
So my point here is that you want to get this adrenaline spike because you've got this addictive personality type. But the therapist said you can choose to put your energy into stuff that's going to bring SWAT teams about or put your life in danger. Or you can choose to put that energy into positive stuff, martial arts, public speaking, etc. So that was key for me to learn to do, was A, to identify I've got this addictive adrenaline junkie personality type, to face my demons, to resolve that trauma, and to channel that energy into constructive things.
That makes perfect sense. And I think it's really good advice. Okay, so for anyone who has enjoyed this as much as I have, how can they follow you?
Yeah, all my socials, my YouTube channel, all my books, they're all just under my name, Shaun Attwood, Shaun Wood. So go on YouTube, you can find me there. Or if you go on Amazon, if you want to read any of my books. My life story is the trilogy. It's Party Time, Hard Time, Prison Time. I've written a series of books about Pablo Escobar, a series of books about the war on drugs. I've written about Epstein. I got banned on YouTube a few times for covering the Epstein case. So I've written books about him. And then more recently, I've written a series of books based on some of my most fascinating podcast guests. The first one was Sit Downs with Gangsters. Then we've got Sit Downs with Female Gangsters. And the next one due to be released is Sit Downs with Serial Killers and Murderers.
Sounds intense. Okay, and we'll definitely put those links in the show notes. Well, Shaun, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you for talking with me. Thanks for your learnings and your wisdom too.
Thank you for your interest, Julian, and good luck with what you guys are doing. Cheers.
Thanks, mate.
This episode was produced by Rachel Tuffrey. It was mixed by Jimmy Saunders, who also did our theme music. Our art is by Rich Akers. Our intern is Ellie Dickey. And this whole thing has been a Super Real production.
Now at Verizon, we have some big news for your peace of mind. For all our customers, existing and new, we're locking in low prices for 3 years guaranteed on My Plan and My Home. That's future you peace of mind. And everyone can save on a brand new phone on My Plan when you trade in any phone from one of our top brands. That's new phone peace of mind. Because at Verizon, whether you're already a customer or you're just joining us, we got you. Visit Verizon today. Price guarantee applies to then current base monthly rate. Additional terms and conditions apply for all offers.
Whenever I need to send roses that are guaranteed to make someone's day, the only place I trust is 1-800-Flowers.com. With 1-800-Flowers, my friends and family always receive stunning, high-quality bouquets that they absolutely love. Right now, when you buy a dozen multicolored roses, 1-800-Flowers will double your bouquet to 2 dozen roses. To claim this special double roses offer, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST.